Hello, and welcome to Outside the Zeitgeist, an opinion podcast presented by Mook Media. Please be aware that the opinions expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect those of the host platform. Outside the Zeitgeist is funded by people like you, for some reason. And now, here are your hosts, Greg and Charles.
All right, welcome to Outside the Zeitgeist, episode 12. Cheers, Greg.
Cheers, Charles.
I am your resident misanthrope, Charles.
I'm your resident skeptic, Greg. Don't forget to subscribe, share, comment, and most importantly, dislike the video so you can express that the feeling is mutual.
All right, now before we get into the nightmare fuel of the day, so I took some time and looked around. We got a couple active listeners. We got about a little more than half a dozen, I'd say.
Oh.
We got a couple of comments on the YouTube channel. One video, this guy said, "I'm your hero." No, you're not my hero. You suck. Do you think I have any heroes? It's probably was when I said the guy in the video and the.
I can't be certain you have. I can't be certain you have any heroes at all. I definitely think you have zeros that you admire.
Yeah.
But not heroes.
This same person also commented on another video. Get a real shirt, which I can only assume he's talking about you.
This is my lackluster shirt today, so possibly.
And another thing is we have one follower on Minds whose channel's name is Retro Cheating. It's all one word on Minds, but he also has a YouTube channel. It's 2 words. So I checked out his channel, and he's got he makes little videos that are about 20 minutes long of just maybe going through older games and going through a stage, or he'll load up a game with the old Game Genies, Game Sharks, and all that stuff, and he'll input a code and go through just so you can see how the game changes and so forth. So if you're into that kind of thing, I've also got a couple videos of his cat there.
Ah, yes, everybody loves cat videos.
Yeah, his cat apparently likes his Pokemon toys, but so if you're interested in that stuff, check it out. Again, it's called Retro Cheating. And now we can get into today's nightmare fuel, and the first nightmare fuel is a personal nightmare fuel, which is why I'm wearing these blue blockers, is because I found out that I have the early signs of macular degeneration. Fuck me.
Well,
at least I won't have to. So please, everybody, kill each other while I can still see it happening. Please,
Look, the entertainment is there. It's just waiting to be filmed and put up in some various film, digital video archive. Mm-hmm. You'll get it, man. I don't know if you'll get the best stuff. I'm thinking. Now, how old are you?
I'm 44.
Okay, so what do you think? 74, 84?
What?
When you die.
Oh. If I had my way, that would have happened a long time ago. I mean, shit, I would have done it a long time ago. Now,
okay. If you make it to 84, I think you'll live long enough to see the great global war that is oncoming, us versus the governments of the world.
I thought it would be over Twitter posts.
No, that's the beginning. It's already there, man. We've already entered the pre-stages of the war. Okay?
So Twitter...
It starts with a minor civil dispute between Twitter, Facebook.
I was gonna say YouTube, shots fired on Twitter.
All of these guys and the various people that they're deplatforming. These are the minor things. This is the beginning of the next big war. Okay, it's already being fought on the streets every night. Every firebomb that hits every government building, and in Europe, whenever the Yellow Jackets protest.
Gilets jaunes. Yeah, I mean, there's apparently been a lot of protesting going on in Europe, which we're not hearing about. There's been a decent amount of protesting going on here, but again, I say fucking took this long to get here. Even a few years ago was too long for my taste, and I'm just like.
Interesting thing about all the protests is I feel like America is the only country not protesting for freedom, whereas in other countries I hear people protesting for freedom. Hong Kong, France, the UK, I'm sure Germany, Italy, all these countries. I hear there are rallies for freedom Nobody wants all of this authoritarian bullshit
Right.
that is being forced upon us, except for the BLM and Antifa and the crazy leftists who are protesting every single goddamn night.
Yeah, but protesting, that brings us up to one of the things I was looking at, and I will, there we go. So, this First Amendment Watch put out an article talking about anti-protest laws in the United States. Now, I was looking at many of these, many of these were from a while ago, actually a few years ago, and a lot of them cycle around, like, Standing Rock and the pipeline, because
Sure.
criminalizing protesting near, what's it called? Near, like, energy sources.
So they're trying to. I'm sorry. Did you say decriminalize?
No, decriminalize it. So making the laws tougher, and there's a whole lot of guilt by association, or like here's part. I was.
Why do you highlight it?
Let's see. Yeah, I'll read it while I can still read. A person commits a riot if he or she willingly participates in a violent public disturbance involving an assembly of 3 or more persons acting with a common intent to assist each other in violent and disorderly conduct, resulting in A. Injury to another person, B. Damage to property, or C. Imminent danger of injury to another person or property. Person who commits a riot commits a felony of the 3rd degree. And this is from
That's the
Florida.
That's the new law they put into place, right?
Yeah, in
and
Florida.
They increased it to a felony.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like all of the stuff that's in here, except for the fact that they're calling it a felony now.
Mm-hmm.
Except, from my understanding, all of this was already considered a riot or illegal in some capacity already. And really all they're doing is they're reclassifying the type of illegality that is being committed.
Well, I think you're missing something here, Greg. The thing that you're missing is that it doesn't make a distinction that the person is not actually doing the act. It's if they participate in the disturbance that becomes violent. So it's not necessarily saying that.
That's what I don't like about the fact that because it says it commits a felony of the 3rd degree.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it should be nearly that harmful to someone's prospective future.
Yeah. I mean, you have another one here. Aggravated riot. Person commits aggravated rioting. Of course, committing a riot, he or she Now, this one's more, the individual is actually participating in the violence, whereas the other one is more, it's more, what's it called? Just tied to it. And there's got this website over here, the U.S. Protest Law Tracker. Shows 45 states are considered. There's 220 bills. 30 have enacted laws.
What does the dark blue represent?
The dark blue represents they have enacted initiatives.
I think this is the one I heard. I was hearing one of my various YouTube and podcast people talk about this, and they both mentioned that they thought it was interesting that they chose blue as the color for this.
Yeah. Now,
as opposed to red.
Go ahead and read what I highlighted there.
The presidential executive order on restoring state, tribal, and local law enforcement's access to life-saving equipment and resources. I'm sorry, is that the name of the executive order?
Nah, I think so, yeah.
That's
important quotes.
Great marketing.
Yeah.
Reinstates a program that transfers surplus military equipment to police departments across the country.
There you go.
This is great stuff. This is great stuff. Everyone's complaining about the fact that the police have military stuff to begin with.
Yep.
What people are really upset about, it seems to me, is that the police are not getting enough training, and they're not being. There's most people, it seems like.
Yeah, well, there's training issues, and it's the whole
too much.
quotas.
There's not enough training by comparison of the average person who's in the police, by comparison to a person who's in the military,
right?
Because they have to stay up on their training, make certain they can use their weapons and such, and that they're trained for any situation.
Right.
The police are not trained nearly as much as that. I also hear a lot of communities are upset about the fact that there aren't enough police, which is only compounded by the fact that people keep resigning from the police force, and that nobody is willing to get a job in the police from the fact that if they do their job, then they do their job well,
then it's just
even if they do their job well and properly, they're still going to be lynched by the mob.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why I stopped teaching. It's one of the reasons why I stopped teaching.
Oh, because you were doing a good job and teaching people to think?
Yeah, and all my students hated... Well,
not how to think?
Most of my students hated me for it, and, the faculty, but I worked at a for-profit school anyways. But, there is a good point. There is a silver lining to the whole idea of defund the police.
Mm-hmm.
It means nobody can come take your guns away because they don't have anybody left.
Sure. This is one of those things that I've argued for a long time, is that people need to have more responsibility for all their own actions.
Mm-hmm.
It was something that was made apparent to me when I was much younger, is that I did not put enough ownership of my actions on myself.
Right.
And it's something I've tried to fix. Hopefully I've done a good job of it. I can't tell from...
No, you suck.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
From an outside perspective, other people would have a better idea if I've done better or not for being self-responsible. But it's something I've argued with my brother for a long time, is that people need to own up to their own faults and find ways to get themselves out of those areas. They can't expect the government to come in and say, oh, here's a couple $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
Fix it. I mean, because...
Well, that's how we solve problems. We just throw money at it.
Absolutely.
And then you fail upwards.
I've contended for a while that money doesn't solve an issue. Money just...
Money is just...
It allows you to put a hole...
Money only solves the issue if the person in charge of the issue has the intent and ability to solve it in the first place.
Yeah, that's why most people who win the lottery simply become amplified versions of themselves and eventually do lose the money within a few months of getting it.
I know somebody that won the lottery a couple $1 million and now is going to spend the rest of their lives in debt because they spent all the money without paying the taxes first.
Idiots. So let's get on to some really interesting nightmare fuel.
What do you got?
First thing I want to talk about is the government. The government, explicitly Joe Biden, is telling us that it is our patriotic duty to get the vaccine.
You know what? It's Joe Biden's patriotic duty to suck my dick.
That might also be true. Also interesting about the government is that we are treating our media like children. When I tell someone, oh, here, have a cookie, I mean it sarcastically, and I'm sort of saying, fuck you, at the same time. Jen Psaki means it quite literally. She handed out cookies last week to the media at the end of the whole entire round of questioning. I'm like, thinking to myself, as I'm hearing about this, I'm like, wow, we really do treat these people like children. They must really actually be children.
I was watching Broadcast News yesterday. If you haven't seen Broadcast News, it's a really good movie, and it's just the whole movie is about how the media just is all more about the sensationalism than reporting. Which
one is that?
That's the one with you had the one guy that's the pretty boy that becomes an anchor. You have God, I forget everybody's names. The girl who's the producer, and then the other guy who wants to be an anchor, and he's the really smart guy. But it came out. It was an '80s movie, '80s maybe '90s. I gotta look it up now. Let me look it up.
I have to watch this tonight.
Broadcast News. I'll loan it to you.
Okay. Saw the Anchorman, right?
Will Ferrell, yeah. 1987, there you go.
1987.
And who's in it? My fucking really slow internet. But, yeah, I mean, the media that's really what it is. And, you have all the media blocking or not talking about all this positive stories around the vid, except for some kid playing singing Mr. Sandman, but with Dr. Fauci.
So
there we go. William Hurt, Albert Brooks, and Holly Hunter.
Okay.
Really good movie.
Any of those names?
Well, Albert Brooks, he's been in a lot of movies. He was.
I feel like I recognize the guy that's in that video for the trailer.
That right there, that's Albert Brooks, and he's the guy with the curly hair.
Do you remember Pixar film Monster Inc.?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm thinking to myself right now, fear sells, but apparently laughter sells better. I don't think the media is.
Well, I don't know about that.
You don't need 50 million people to love you. You need 5 million people fucking pissed.
I think that's how the media operates.
I don't know, man. I mean, I think that's pure comedy right there, that quote.
I mean, look at Twitter and all the...
Angry typing.
I mean, you still have people, on a fucking rage about that girl that got with the knife that got shot.
Sure.
You know, and all these people are like, oh, we got
The
to.
neighbor came out and said it was a well-deserved shooting.
Yeah, I mean, but you have all these people like, oh, Black Lives Matter. Apparently not, because you don't care about the girl who was about to be stabbed.
But they only cared about the aggressor. The aggressor was a black life too. We cared about one of the black lives. That's all that matters.
It's one over the other. Yeah.
I further believe that's proof that everyone's growing up into a adult child.
Oh yeah, I mean that's been the case for a long time.
It's just no self-responsibility. Do you have anything?
Well, to use a saying that's been said before and people are using now, the fix is in. The fix is in because Philip Zelikow, you ever heard that name before?
No.
He was put as the head of the 9/11 Commission at one point. And when he was made head of the 9/11 Commission, apparently about a week after him being made head of the 9/11 Commission, there was a rough draft of the final report about 9/11.
Oh, there was already a rough draft?
Yeah. I mean, this was after, Kissinger, and like, oh yeah, that's obviously bullshit. So the Zelikow guy, so he's being put in charge of a COVID commission.
I mean, okay, so this is another example of
great.
just people who don't know how to do their job being put into power. Fauci famously tried to solve AIDS, I believe, back in like, what was it, 70s or 80s or whatever time period that was.
And fucking Fauci couldn't solve a 10-piece jigsaw
He couldn't
puzzle.
solve AIDS back then. He tried putting out a vaccine that ended up going poorly, very poorly apparently, and they put him back in charge of another one. The Fauciism is everywhere. Did you hear that song?
Yeah, and Mr. Sandman.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's what I was saying before.
There's such a cult around Fauci. I don't understand it.
Well,
he seems like a dumb guy.
He-
He's making statements. He flip-flops from week to week. He is just a politician with a doctorate degree in something.
Yeah,
I don't even know if it's medicine.
That's the thing. It's like people tell you, "Oh, don't you trust the science?" Which one? It was different a week ago. I don't know what the fuck.
Other interesting, fun things about the vaccine, the doomspell, I should say. There is this wonderful advert in the UK that is trying to get Muslims to get the vaccine and all that. And they have the entire slew of celebrities that are all racially diverse and all that. One of the first things they mention is, it does not contain pork. There is no way to see your family other than take the vaccine. They're very family-heavy culture, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
It is very rare for vaccines to have long-term side effects. No tracker will be put into the vaccine. And then they say, the phone is a much better way of doing that. So that means they're already tracking us through our phones.
And our cars.
Yes. Herd immunity is not an option. What did I hear a year ago, sometime in May or April, that we had to reach herd immunity? And Fauci lied about those numbers too.
I'm not going to call him Fauci anymore. From now on, he's Dr. Fawcett. Because that's all he is. He's a faucet of bullshit.
He came out last year, I think in November or December, and he openly admitted that he lied about the numbers for herd immunity that we needed. He said, "Oh yeah, it would be good if we got 70%." And
Oh
said,
no, now it's 80%.
No, yeah.
And then he comes out and does this whole long bullshit.
Yeah.
Well, I explained it this way, but now the numbers are this, so I explained it this way just because fuck you people.
This is great stuff. And finally, they also mentioned, amongst a number of other things, were just all hilarious. If you're viewing it from my perspective, which is, this is comedy. Life is comedy. You just gotta take it in.
I'm loving all of this shit.
It does not damage or change your DNA. These are, I mean, if it reprograms my DNA to produce spike proteins, that they're telling my DNA, you need to kill those spike proteins.
I'm telling the antibodies.
Yes. So if my body is now producing spike proteins, and my antibodies are being told, kill those spike proteins.
Yep.
Okay. First and foremost.
Well, that's what I was explaining on Thursday. How it's basically a way of manually inducing lupus.
Sure. I don't know if everyone understood that.
So lupus is an autoimmune disease. It's when your T cells start attacking your own cells because they identify your own cells as being a virus or some kind of external pathogen.
Absolutely.
So
makes sense to me.
I mean,
except
now
for the fact that we're getting ourselves to do it.
I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, you could, in theory, say it's like, okay, well, you can like just put on a few cells, and then and then your body, the antibodies the T cells will just kill off those cells before they can reproduce, before they can undergo mitosis. But am I going to rely on that?
No. Now,
I'll watch everybody else rely on it.
An interesting point that was brought up in one of the podcasts I listened to. And it's something I'm not actively thinking about this type of stuff because it's sort of like a white noise to me. I don't give a shit about it. I ignore it. It is so uninformative or unuseful to me. And thinking about the vaccine in general, I should say.
Spell.
Yes. They brought up, if the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines are just getting your body to create spike proteins that they're going to destroy, how would it be less effective against any variant of the virus since they attach to all the spike proteins?
Wait, say that question again?
Okay, so he proposed the fact that since the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines are getting your body to create spike proteins that the antibodies are going to destroy, okay? And I believe it is the COVID virus attaches to the spike proteins to get into the body and such.
Well, yeah, I mean, the way a virus actually works is it identifies other cells by the protein markers that are on the cell, and then it'll grab on, and then it'll open up through the cell wall, and all that DNA and RNA just goes in, and it turns into a factory making more virus.
His point was, and I don't know how relevant this is, but his point is if this is how the virus is getting in, okay, this is the only way we're seeing. They're not telling us that it's suddenly doing something different with all these mutants or variants.
Yeah, I'd still like to see the science behind the whole mutates faster than other viruses.
I would love to see the science on it. Because as far as I hear, it's just returning to its original form.
Yeah, I mean, the only way I can possibly think of it mutating faster than any other virus is if somehow its genetic coding is significantly longer than that of your typical virus. But that causes problems in and of itself.
I still haven't seen anyone come out with the genetic coding of the virus yet. Something that I believe they've tried asking in the UK. I've heard a couple clips of this person consistently questioning the universities that are apparently working on this stuff and seeing, can I get the genetic coding? And they're not having the genetic coding to even talk about.
What a surprise.
Yeah. So the point of bringing that up was, he was saying, if the virus is coming in the same way and it's attaching to the same things, okay, how is it that the Pfizer or Moderna vaccine, which is already telling you to destroy this, wouldn't be effective against the other ones, which theoretically should also be invading in the same way?
Yeah, I mean, well, so when you have mutations in pathogens, viruses and bacteria, so what a mutation is just an allele either swaps out or gets inserted or deleted, and that single allele chain can change the way a protein marker shapes because what happens inside of the cells is these amino acids come together, form this whole long protein chain, and then because of all the polar bonding, hydrogen bonding, or non-transferable bonding, whatever you want to call it, the proteins kind of reshape and they form this little like blob thing. And
blob thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, but it's a functional blob thing because it works based off of electrostatic charges.
Humans are functional blob things.
Yeah, we are. So
Sacks of flesh.
So those markers will get attached to the phospholipids on the cell wall, and then they just stick out there. So, and if you change an allele, well, then the whole folding process becomes different, so the entire marker can look differently.
This is something I'm gonna have to put on my list of things to look into.
Yeah, that's. I mean, if you ever took college level biology, that's.
I didn't.
Oh.
I wasn't interested in becoming a biologist, so I just ignored that.
Yeah,
I went into marketing and I learned that Apple could sell anything, especially if they named something called the iShit.
But speaking about stuff in vaccines, I came across a couple of articles from New American Vagabond. This one, now the video apparently is deleted from YouTube.
That's American Vagabond.
What's it called? The Last American Vagabond. And the headline here says that Norway says that vaccine risk death is higher than the actual vid itself, and that the 75% of the vaccine deaths occurred within India within 3 days of getting the doom spell. So that was something interesting to look at. I didn't really get time to dive any deeper myself, which is what I'm going to claim. Um, but I just wanted to point that out
Great
because
stuff.
I think it would be interesting for people to look up. That's the New American Vagabond. But in the spirit of things, here we go. Another article from them. New study finds that granddaughters of people exposed to DDT, which is dichlorodiphenyl trichloroethylene.
What a mouthful.
Oh, yeah, here, let's punch it up right now.
No, it's not. We don't
Okay,
need to.
fuck you then. So it's just this chemical, and it's an organic chemical. And granddaughters of people that were exposed to it have increased risk of cancer. And this was something that was used to treat malaria. So this is that whole thing, when people say, oh, it's an approved vaccine or it's authorized vaccine. Well,
Wow.
this was used for malaria, and now look what's happening.
I guess there are long-term side effects to vaccines.
Well, I mean, there can be long-term side effects to anything. That's the whole point.
Yes, I was told that if I ate too many broccoli things, I would become a broccoli.
Oh, you become broccoli?
Absolutely.
Oh, I hate broccoli.
I love broccoli.
I think it's disgusting.
It's one of my favorite vegetables.
Ew.
Yeah, well.
What else you got?
I got a great thing here. It is hilarious. Dogecoin. Dogecoin is the meme coin of ever. It will always be the meme coin. What's really funny about this is this big scandal in Turkey. Apparently the Turkey did something to the laws and made it easier for anybody to start up a crypto chain exchange.
Right.
A crypto exchange of sorts. And so the founder of Thodex, the Turkey crypto exchange, disappeared with $2 billion in cash, got people to sign on with the promise of 700,000 Dogecoins that they were going to be distributed to the users for free, just for signing up. There may have been other stuff. That's what I'm hearing, is that they're just going to distribute them for free for signing up. And absconds with all the money, and now people can't access their accounts. And the lawyer of the founder is saying that it's only affecting a few thousand people, not the 300,000 people that signed up to join. And
That reminds me of that story that came out of EVE Online a few years ago where the guy is like, oh, I'm going to start a bank where everybody can keep their money.
Oh,
And
yeah.
if they die, they have access to all the money. They don't lose them from dying.
Yeah.
And then builds a fort, hires a bunch of mercenaries. Okay, it's my money now, bitches.
I love that game. I gotta look into more stories about that game, because every time I read a story about EVE Online, they're always using real world cash to compare it to, because you can put actual money into the game to do stuff.
Now, see, this is one thing like about economists in general, right? Because you don't really have any economists that study these microeconomies like in any of the MMOs, like EVE Online.
They really should.
They should have a long time ago. I mean, especially looking at the economy of World of Warcraft was a great thing to study between expansions, because you would have things that were valuable, and then the expansion came out, and now it's not worth it, and then what's it called? Then they made it so you can buy gold, and then you always had like the gold farmers and all that kind of stuff.
The best part about EVE Online was when I read that there was a digital war that took place in it that was more expensive than any real world war that had gone on in recent years. And I'm thinking to myself, holy shit, there are so many fucking children with parents that are irresponsible with their money, and grown adults that just sink money into video games.
Well, I mean, it's not only, but it's grown adults also. One of the things I learned about recently was there was this SPAC, which is a special purpose acquisitions company, and that's like all the rage now. If you start a company and it says SPAC in it, people will just they'll practically throw the money. They'll practically force the money down your throat, actually.
Ooh,
But
remind me to start a shell company with the name SPAC in it.
okay, so this one apparently was all about buying used cars, and it was somehow valued at $7 billion after making negative 2% profit.
How do you make negative 2% profit?
And so it spent more money than it took in. It was buying used cars, I guess, to flip them and turn them over and whatnot.
Let's think about that a different way.
So, yeah, I mean, the market, it's fucking crazy. Start us back, and here you go. Have a lot of money.
Sure.
IPOs, there you go.
Speaking of people and having a lot of money, Kamala Harris has proposed a new way of getting people to stay in Mexico. She has proposed paying Mexican migrants or migrants in general to plant trees in Mexico as opposed to coming to America.
Yeah, and plant trees in the desert. That's nice. I'm pretty sure the K Hive is all supporting her on this one. Did you ever hear about them?
No.
The K Hive?
No. What is the K Hive?
The K Hive is the what's it called? The supporters of Kamala Harris on Twitter.
Okay,
and
that makes sense now. The K Hive.
Yeah. They're to defend the person that is one of the most powerful people in the world, because she certainly needs defense and.
Sure.
But it's mostly a lot of bots and people doing.
Angry typing.
By the way, I love that soundbite. Thank you very much, Kersner. For all the rest of you, if you've never heard or seen Lady Bits or Boss Fight, check it out on YouTube. It has nothing to do with the fact that I backed both of them through Kickstarter. They're both fantastic series. Liana K on YouTube. Thank you again, Kersner. And back to what we were saying. Yeah, the K Hive. Apparently, a lot of them were bots.
I mean, that doesn't surprise me. I mean, I figure maybe not most, but a lot of people have bots just trying to advertise to them or throw words at them that they hope will influence them to buy something.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, that's why, you can, if you're Russian, you can change the way people vote just by simply advertising dildos to them.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're freedom dildos.
Yes.
I mean,
red, white, and blue.
Actually, you know what it is? This is how they changed it. They were shaped like elephant penises, and that's how the Russians were getting people to vote for Donald Trump.
Were those the bots that YouTube was using months back, years back, and still is using to take away money from their supposedly, digital content creators?
I don't know. I mean, this is why I say, we say, yeah, okay, not all the rich people are the problem, but poor people can't afford bot farms. Poor people don't run sex trafficking rings. I mean, I seriously doubt that guy I gave $20 to on the street a couple weeks back is using it to fund a meth lab in his basement. In fact,
No. I'm sure he bought the meth and just smoked it.
Well, I'm pretty sure he doesn't have a basement or a home.
Dude, don't tell me he doesn't have a basement. There is a sewer on every street. He has a basement.
But yeah, rich people are great.
Some are.
No, it's all the poor people that are doing it. I mean, realistically though, is kind of the whole, true in a sense, which is why I wanted to start this show, because people think just because they're poor they got no power, but 150 million of you fuckers decided to vote for the same goddamn bullshit, so I don't want to fucking hear you complaining anymore.
The interesting thing about poor people in general, is that countries are founded by people, for people. Okay? Go with me for a moment.
Okay.
The United States was founded by a bunch of people that didn't want to live under the dictatorship of another group of people. And theoretically, it should be the poor people who actually make all the decisions in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Because we fund the country.
Well, I mean,
I just don't see it happening.
Well, and the other thing too is, like I said before, the only difference between a rich person and a poor person is that the rich person has more resources with which to spread their stupidity amongst the world.
Oh, they
Or
spread
inflict
they spread that stupidity very, very far.
Or realistically inflict others with their stupidity. What else you got?
I got that over 500 federally funded scientists are under a federal investigation for being compromised by China. And my first thought was, if any of these 500 federally funded scientists had created any of the wonderful studies that were studying anything of COVID last year,
Mm-hmm.
and it was proven that they were were actually compromised by China.
Right.
And it was their results in these studies that got politicians the ability to steal our rights and such.
No surprise there.
If that was. Okay, this is all hypotheticals at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So if any of these scientists did come to conclusions that just so happened to allow politicians to grab power,
Right.
I can't see them ever telling us about it. Or even rescinding any of this power that they've now taken by using false information, potentially, to do it. That was my first thought, was that, this government finds out that something is false. Do they ever correct themselves? No. Usually they just hide the fact
only
that
when
was
it's in their
false
interest to correct themselves.
Oh,
like,
absolutely. What is that?
Oh, I'm pretty sure it's like 30 years after the fact. Like, oh, we shouldn't have went into the Vietnam. Oh, that was the newspaper. I'm sorry. We shouldn't have went into the Vietnam War and all that bullshit.
5 years after that, some newspaper will contradict the previous newspaper saying, "Oh, it was a good thing," or something.
Yeah. There's weapons of mass destruction in the Gulf of Tonkin. That's why we need to. Fuck that up. I had an idea and I just lost it. What was it? What was I going to say? There's weapons of mass destruction in the Gulf of Tonkin. That's why we all need to get a jab in our arms, because otherwise they'll take all the babies out of the incubators and the towers that none will fall. I mean, that's really what it all is.
You're starting to sound drunk.
No, but that's all the fucking bullshit that we hear.
I mean, even more bullshit is the fact that the government officials and the media are now trying to spin why people don't want to get the doom spell. They cannot get over the fact that people just don't want to get it.
Yeah.
And they compounded the effect of how many people actually didn't want to get it when they put a stop to the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Because that was the beginning of the end for it. Because since then, I've heard I think we've only doom-spelled 40% of America.
Well,
which sounds about close to right to how many people I thought would actually get it, which is about 60.
Speaking of things you're hearing, let's look at something we're not hearing, which is a video I found that apparently came out a month and a half ago. Yeah, it's all over BitChute, not on YouTube, so we'll see how much I can play from my pauper net. Oh my god, that's really loud.
Is it?
It is really loud. There
Welcome
we go.
to Canadian Doctors Speak Out, where we're going to give you the top reasons not to be afraid of COVID. When we hear the word COVID or coronavirus, we now instinctively reach for a mask or look around to see how we can protect ourselves and our families. No place really seems safe. But as Canadian medical doctors, we're going to tell you what the best science now has to say. And we think you'll be pleasantly surprised. On the TV, we hear cases, which would frighten anyone. But cases are not necessarily symptomatic people. And the vast majority have few or really no symptoms of being sick.
Hold on,
they just have a positive PCR.
Pause it for a moment. These case numbers that they're purporting, the media is using, and the government is using, to justify all of their dictatorial.
And I'm the one that's
decrees.
apparently drinking too much.
Fuck you.
How hard?
Anyways, they've been using this for the last year to justify anything that they do for any reason. And he's saying, oh, it doesn't mean that they're sick. It just means that they have a.
Oh wait, no, wait. You're missing. You missed something. Wait till it gets deeper into the video.
Okay.
Swab test. Research now shows that the PCR test is practically worthless. Only
People have been
3% of
saying this
patients
already.
with a positive test actually have the COVID virus. People have died. Yes, that's true. But using case numbers gives a false picture of what is really going on.
Your internet sucks, man.
My internet does suck.
Okay. I've heard so many scientists who are not allowed to talk because YouTube keeps removing them or stopping them from speaking. People in government stopping them from speaking talk about the fact that the PCR tests are worthless tests. They've talked about the fact that the PCR test, the cycle count is entirely too high to get accurate results. If it's between 17 and 25, yes, that person probably has COVID or is close to getting COVID.
Right.
But the PCR test is a test of data at that time. It doesn't even take into account the fact that 2 weeks later, when the person, if it incubated at that time,
Right.
then it might show a much higher result and tell you something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, apparently the PCR test, you put anything through with enough cycles and it'll come up positive.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can come up positive for fucking chicken pox.
You could come up positive for a number of things. That's the whole thing about the PCR test.
I could come up positive for being Thanos.
No, you're not purple enough.
Don't make me do it.
Look, you only have one of the gems, and it's currently on your face here. You don't scare me. That's only death right there. That only allows you to communicate with someone who's dead.
Your great-great-granddaddy says you're an asshole. All right, let's see how much I can get more out of this.
Okay.
Here's a graph showing the COVID cases.
Oh my God, my internet's so horrible.
Even I get frightened looking at this graph. But now let's put the weekly deaths on the same chart. Where are all the deaths that you would expect to follow the cases curve? Something is really fishy here.
All right, so you see what he's pointing out here? Look at this. It doesn't follow the curve at all.
Nope.
You know.
Well, it sort of does. Yeah, you see a little tiny bump with the giant spike. Then you see a little tiny bump with the giant spike.
Yeah, but you see, but it's so delayed from the initial spike.
It is.
The cases curve.
Something is really
fishy here. Let's look at yearly deaths in Canada from 2001. It's pretty hard to show that we've even had a pandemic. The slight increase in 2020 was probably due to an aging population.
People have been
but
saying
are hospital intensive care units overloaded with COVID patients? If we look at the Ontario intensive care unit data.
I don't think he reads the numbers. 88.66% in 2017, 91.21% in 2018, 83.51% in 2019, and 80.84% in 2020.
So, interesting thing about that, 80.84. I suspect that it's much, much lower than all the other years for one reason.
Everybody stayed home?
Yes. The people who actually needed to be in the intense critical care unit, they weren't allowed to. And they died at home if they had an issue. And those deaths weren't really talked about at all.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing you had. A lot of people afraid of going to the hospital for stuff, even, if they were sick, or not, or if they injured themselves or something, just because they were afraid of catching it.
There are fewer patients in the ICU in 2020 than in each of the previous 3 years. The CDC's own data compares COVID to seasonal flu. In children, COVID illness is so mild, their death rate is statistically 0. For people under 50, the infection survival rate is greater than 99.98%. And for those over 70, it is 94.6%. And that is without any early treatment whatsoever, like vitamin D or vitamin C. So if you're young, you really don't have anything to worry about.
So, this video, like I said, is mostly on BitChute. For those of you that are listening, I'll put a link in the description of the podcast, or the audio clip. Hopefully it'll translate. So yeah, we'll keep going on. I really just want to pause so I can buffer.
We're going to give you some really great ideas on how to protect your health that do not include getting a shot with the vaccine.
And the other thing too is this video was put out by the some organization in Canada, the Canadian Health Awareness Organization or some shit like that. I can't remember.
The interesting thing about all those numbers he talked about with the CDC, I heard those numbers back in not November, not September, not even July. I heard those numbers in May of last year. May of last year. Okay, there were a point of percentage different. It was saying anybody, I think under 70 was 99.7% likely to survive.
Yeah.
But these have been the numbers that I've heard repeated by...
I know. But Greg, you got to be afraid. You have a 99.7% chance of surviving.
Afraid of what? You sticking a finger up my ass?
Let's continue.
So back in April, we knew so little about COVID, and this led us to take a lot of extra precautions, including adopting the idea that healthy people can spread disease. This is known as asymptomatic spread, and that's a very scary thought. Now, however, over 10 million cases have been studied, and evidence is rapidly emerging both from Wuhan and the University of Florida, showing that asymptomatic and pre-symptomatic spread are negligible to non-existent.
Now, here's the thing. I mean, it is possible to be asymptomatic and spread something, but we typically see this between different species. Like, Malaria or Lyme disease is transmitted by ticks. Lyme disease doesn't affect ticks at all. They show no symptoms of it, but it affects humans. It's very unlikely that you'll see a virus or bacteria that it spreads asymptomatically through humans. I mean, it is possible, but the statistics are very low.
Hold up, before you play that.
Yeah, sure.
Another interesting thing I had seen throughout the last year with regards to this is the fact that none of this... You know what, continue. I got to collect my thought for a moment.
All right, you collect your thought, Greg.
This is a game changer. This means that we can take our lives back.
No, you can't. Government says you can't.
Time-tested advice I've always given my patients when they have a virus. If you're sick, stay home. And the rest of us can be free to live our lives.
I don't know about you, but actually getting sun makes me feel better when I'm sick.
Getting what?
Sun.
Oh, yeah, getting sun is definitely... Vitamin D. Didn't they talk about that?
Yeah.
We have great news. Do you know that many of us are already immune to SARS-CoV-2 due to cross-reactive T cells? A T cell is just another immune cell that helps our body fight infection. At the beginning of the pandemic, SARS-CoV-2 was considered a novel coronavirus, meaning that none of us were immune to it and all of us were still at risk for infection.
I do have to say that she does sound like she's reading off cue cards.
She might be.
However, immunologists and virologists worldwide have studied and found that 30 to 50% of people already have pre-existing immunity to SARS-CoV-2 from pre-existing circulating T cells. This pre-existing immunity is due to prior exposure from other coronaviruses, such as the common cold. So the problem is with testing for COVID immunity is most of the tests are serum antibody tests, but this doesn't look at our T cell response. And antibody levels decline over time, but we still have our T cells to protect us.
So T cells are basically cells that they're kind of, you can kind of think of them as memory storage.
Yes.
So once you get infected with a virus or bacteria, they'll remember. So it promotes a faster response from your body.
Before we get back to this, I have a great anime for anybody who wants to learn about the body and how it functions, by also being entertained by Japanese humor at the same time.
Oh God, I had my screen backwards.
Cells at Work, I believe it's called. Cells at Work is a fantastic little anime that it might even be a manga that follows.
Oh, it looks like it's a manga.
Well, it's both. It's probably both.
Yeah.
It follows a red blood cell and a white T cell, and it's the interactions of them and how they stop all the evil viruses and bacteria from getting in. And they go through a lot of really good information about how the cells work.
But here in America, we have Osmosis Jones.
Wow. I didn't think that was as educational as it was just entertaining.
Yeah. Pretty much. All right, let's see what else.
Many of us are more protected than we realize from COVID from our T cells.
Oh, my fucking internet. So one other thing too is that she points out, tests are for the antibodies, and that's what I was saying when we were talking before about people testing positive for the vid even after getting the doom spell, but that could just be that they're showing the antibodies for it, not necessarily having the actual vid itself, which I don't think is going to be reported in the media because they all want us to be fearful and kill each other.
Well, the media has come out and said they wanted to shoot down Donald Trump's prospects for re-election last year.
Yeah.
So that includes re-emphasizing how deadly this undeadly virus actually is.
So, all right, we'll stop watching the video there.
Okay.
Let's see. Forget what this. I'll put it all in and see if I can find it there. You got anything else? Because we're getting close to the time we need to. Here we go. The Canadian Health Alliance. It's Canada Health Alliance. CanadaHealthAlliance.org. There you go.
I think I have one last thing.
Oh shit! Oh well.
What?
I closed the window.
You closed the window?
That's fine. I can find it and put it in the notes.
It's not really a big thing. I've just been following it on and off.
Mm-hmm.
Just a couple of various cases that I just check in every now and then.
Right.
First and foremost is I'm always checking in on the whole Ghislaine Maxwell situation and how that keeps evolving. And
she was a poor person herself, right? Ghislaine Maxwell. You know, like I was saying before, it's all the poor people that have the sex trafficking rings.
Oh yeah. She was definitely poor for being able to fund all that. I'm also following the Maricopa County, still continuing to recount their votes. I heard
in Arizona.
In Arizona, I heard something interesting is that the judge has recused himself because I believe there was someone that was brought in that. I always forget the reason for why they were recused, but it's some personal reason, I think. So he had to recuse himself from the case, which I always find it interesting when people don't recuse themselves when they should.
Right.
But and then also, I found it interesting about Kyle Kulinski making comments on Caitlyn Jenner running for California.
She'll win by giving if she wins, everybody gets a Pepsi.
So funny thing about it, I heard two different takes on it. One of the people I follow, Dr. Borshenko, I can't remember her first name, but she has a YouTube channel, and she was talking about the fact that Republicans should go all in on this and start shaming Democrats who are not voting for her, because if they don't, they're transphobes.
Wait, I'm not getting my person. She's the one that did the Pepsi commercial, right?
Did she?
What was that her, or am I thinking somebody else?
You might be.
Oh, that. Well, I'm the fucking asshole this episode.
Well, she's
more than
on.
Usual.
Dr. Borshenko is on
it was the video where people are protesting.
Dude, I don't know.
I
don't know. I don't follow this shit. I don't follow celebrities. I don't follow any of this crap because I don't give a shit about
I don't
them.
like the fact that I know any of this shit. So, fuck you, Greg. Just fucking finish up your shit.
So Kyle Kulinski was making comments on it as well about Caitlyn Jenner not having any policy positions, and that being why he can't vote for her. But I counter with the fact that not a single politician I heard last year running for office had any policy positions other than, oh, this is a popular topic. Let's talk about it. And talk about it in a way that sounds great and aggressive. And we're going to be tough on Trump. Trump. Topic. All these politicians are just talking about shit they don't even care about. Yeah, they don't even mean any of it.
They sound like people in The Sims. That's all you heard last year from the politicians.
Not like that guard from Skyrim who took an arrow to the knee?
Yeah, I don't know.
NPCs all sound the same to me personally.
I hope some of them take an arrow to the dick. But anyways.
Let's move on to the topic.
So today's topic is about solipsism. For those of you who don't know, solipsism is basically there's a couple different ways it's looked at. And actually, there's another thing Kerzner kind of inspired this because she was talking about it last week. A solipsism is when a person basically believes that there's one way of looking at it is a person believes that they're the only actual person. Right? Everybody else is either a creation of their imagination or something. It's an extreme egocentric view of the world. However, there's also what the hell did I just see, Craig?
I don't know, man. My feed on Instagram is filled with crazy people.
Apparently. So there's an extension of that is the idea that my way of thinking is the only way of thinking, and other ways of thinking are errors. There's something wrong with them, and so forth. And I wanted to talk about this idea through different aspects, and beginning with how individuals, mainly focus on how people get into this solipsistic view of the world, starting with inherent internal ways into it. The whole idea of just by yourself thinking, oh, well, this is the way everybody thinks, and so forth, and if they don't, then there's something wrong with them. So what do you got to start on that, Greg, if you got anything?
Well, I see a lot of that in our current crazy culture of America. There's just a lot of people, I think, that are just my way is the only way kind of thinking. I don't know if I necessarily think terribly many people fall into the first definition where you're saying that.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty uncommon.
But I'm looking at something interesting. I was looking at historical usage of the word, and they have all the way back to 1800s, up to 2019, and a little bit past that maybe. And it seems like over time, starting in the 1900s, that the word has gone uptick in how much use it's had, and now it's really, really high. It doesn't say the numbers on this tiny little chart; it just shows but it feels like it's a buzzword right now for anything.
Well, it is something that still is something to consider, but so let's talk about is really the idea of like growing up, right? When you're young. Before ages before you and I can remember, except when you have only a couple memories. This idea that you kind of there's a possibility for some people to enter this view of the world naturally because maybe they're not getting any feedback based on what they are doing, or they're just or the way they interpret and internalize things without actually even looking for feedback from other people. Right? They just kind of say, "Oh, well, this is how it must be. This is how it must be for everybody," and I'm just going on with life and never even really thinking otherwise.
Well, that is a fallacy, of course, that everyone's thinking the same way as you.
Right.
There's definitely going to be someone you might come across that thinks the same way as you, but it's definitely I think it's a failing to believe that everyone is going to have the same exact thought process as you. I myself, I find it astounding that people don't reach the same conclusions that but I realize also that, and I find it very tough, especially to, if I'm presented with A, B, and C, and you're presented with A, B, and C,
right?
The fact that you come to a different conclusion than myself, I can only think to myself, why?
Right.
The information is right there. It's obviously this. But that, I think, that's where the fallacy is, and you can't assume that someone is going to have the same exact thought process as you. My thought process on something is going to be much more than some people's, more analytical. I'm going to be looking at where it lines up, where the different facts connect.
And your initial reaction is basically what I'm pointing to is that's a solipsistic reaction. Is, well, why would Now, granted, in your case, you're asking, well, why, and you're acknowledging that there's people work different ways, but the fact that somebody else comes to a different conclusion, the first thing you want to do is say, okay, there's something here, right, and that's different from myself. What is that, right? So that's part of where it starts for a lot of people, but some people don't take the step to actually ask why, see through another perspective, and they just go, oh, well, this person must be something wrong with them, or
that's why I see a lot of this happening in our current culture. Is a lot of people are just using, so there's so many of these fucking buzzwords that I hate. I hate a lot of these buzzwords. So
we should do an episode on buzzwords.
We should. So I hate when someone says systemic racism. I hate when someone says, oh, it's anecdotal evidence. I hate it when someone says any of these stupid words that they use to either dispute your claim or claim that your information is just invalid information. Because they're only using those words because they just heard the word and it sounded really good for them for how to win an argument. And it allows them to say that my entire body of information is completely invalid, regardless of how much evidence I have to back it up.
Right.
And
in that aspect, it becomes kind of a follower mentality, where realistically the person is feeding into someone else's solipsism, someone else's created solipsism, whether it's by intent or but subconsciously. Or
I do see a very strong, maybe not strong, a large amount of people falling into this, what would you call this?
Well, I mean, in a way, it becomes groupthink.
Sure.
It
could be.
I mean, that's basically what this idea.
What is solipsism a term for? What is it? A mental thing or?
It's a perspective.
Perspective.
It's that the way I think is the way people should be thinking, and anybody else who doesn't think that way, there's something wrong with. That's one way of interpreting it.
There's one way of interpreting.
Right, and this is what leads to like the echo chambers and whatnot.
What the hell?
Are you trying to clean your non-stick pans?
No, I was. I didn't realize that's what I was looking up on Chrome.
So, and one other way that people actually kind of, make their way into a solipsism is through education. Not in the fact by undergoing education, but simply never questioning it. Right? They never question the things that they learn or are taught.
I find that incredibly sad. I think that if someone is not questioning what's around them, either A, they have not yet learned that they can question what is around them, or they've been living in such a secluded environment that they've been brainwashed into believing that there is no questioning the evidence that is presented to you. It's that you should always be questioning. This brings me back to why I'm a huge fan of science and things of that nature. Is that
with science, it changes every week.
Just the idea of science. I'm a huge fan of the idea of science and what it encourages people to do, to question their surroundings, to try and get to the correct answer by doing little experiments that trying to repeat those experiments so that way you can prove that what you found is correct. Or false, so that way you can move on to a new idea.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing too that I find interesting is that people will. It's interesting how people find they view something as reliable without seeing if it's reliable. It's like, oh, there's stairs here. I'm just gonna walk up the steps without looking to see if they're rickety old steps or not. And it's the idea that, oh, well, there's steps here, because they're here, I should be fine.
Sure.
Rather than, oh, these steps look like they have been here for 100 years and have never been taken care of, and one of them's missing, but it's okay, So,
I don't know. I feel like we're going to be this trend towards thinking in one direction. I don't know if I'd call it exactly solipsism because I'm just looking at various definitions of it, but it seems similar to that. This is an interesting one. The view that the self is the only reality.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was.
So that makes me think of like a video game, right? Because in a video game, I'm the only person that's real in the video game. So
even in an MMO.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
MMO.
Okay.
100%.
The rest are just gold farming bots. Got it.
Absolutely. I don't know if anyone I'm talking to is real. I only can know that I am real.
It's funny you say that because because of all the issues I used to have with hallucinating.
The theory that the self is the only thing that can be known and verified. So that's another interesting definition for it, because I don't know that you actually exist. When I poke you, I know that there's something physical there.
Or you feel something.
Sure, the fact that you're responding to me tells me that there's something in front of me. But it sounds to me as if someone who's really deep into solipsism is very, very, what's the word? Skeptical of every single thing around them to the point where it's an erotic disease of sorts. They might be maybe schizophrenic or something.
Yeah, I mean that's that. Well, I can talk about that whole thing because, like I've mentioned before, I was suffering from psychosis many years ago, And I didn't realize at the time I was hallucinating, but I was hallucinating. I just knew things weren't right. And so I questioned everything. And let me tell you, it was a shitty fucking time. Because there were times when I felt like I was kind of sitting in the back of my own mind, just watching myself doing things. And
I've had similar thoughts to that.
Yeah. And it was weird because, like, even though I'm consciously thinking one way and doing, and wanting to do certain things, there's another part of me that's thinking another way and wanting to do other things, and that seemed to be the part that was more, or was doing more of the actions.
Mm-hmm.
So
that would be a very crazy out-of-body experience.
Yeah, I mean, that's one way of describing it.
Did you record it from the out-of-body's perspective?
Yes, I had my ghostly webcam. It's fueled by ectoplasm.
Another interesting definition.
Slimer was producing.
The belief or proposition that the person entertaining it alone exists, and that other people exist only as ideas in his mind.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes me think of the Matrix.
Yeah. I mean, and I. No, I think sometimes, when I wonder, like, especially after Friday finding out about my eyes, I was just like, is this fucking real? Like, what the fuck is going on? What is my life and all this shit that I've been through so much shit in my life? And I mean, that kind of puts, to mind another way that people can enter a solipsistic view of the world is by struggle. Like, if you're struggling and you're struggling with all these things and you're just so alone in all those struggles, I mean, that can easily...
I mean, if you're a loner, are you solipsistic?
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 I wouldn't naturally say so, but I mean, it's possible. But, I mean, it's possible for anybody to be solipsistic realistically. But like going back to what I was saying before about education, right? And this is more of the idea that people that your way of thinking is the one true way and everything else. Because people get educated and they don't question their education.
I don't know. That was something I was taught to do, was always question my education.
Well, a lot of people aren't and don't. So they think that what they've learned in school is the end all be all of everything. And
I think it was my father's stubbornness to make certain he had read every single thing, or when I say that, I mean like contracts and stuff, to make certain he wasn't being screwed one way or another. Yeah. The fact that he had to check to see if the door was locked every time we went out. He's like, oh, gotta check to make sure I lock the doors.
Yeah, I gotta read the rest of my books before I lose my vision.
Sure. So, I always question stuff just because of the fact that it's like, is this really what's being presented to me? That's why I have a very healthy respect for contracts. Contracts are binding in some degree, and in other regards, not really much at all. Much like laws.
Yeah. Actually, that's why I got this tattoo over here, is because of the psychosis and hallucinations, because, not knowing what's real, and, maybe I'm just perceiving things in a certain way, and they aren't actually that way.
Now, how does one check reality?
I have no clue. Yeah,
Does it require the hand with the tattoo going...
that could be a way, it's... Mechanical agitation is usually the best problem for electrical...
That's what the Fonz told me.
Electrical problems, yeah.
Wait,
mechanical agitation is the best solution for electrical problems. There we go.
There you go. I mean, do you think this is going to be something that we will see more of in the future?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're looking at it in terms of where the more groupthink definition, then obviously we're going towards that way, because that's all you see a lot more. And and like I comment repeatedly, it doesn't matter which banner you're waving, you're still waving a banner and following some mentality, which is the other way of entering a solipsistic view, is other people impressing that upon you, right? Like when you're a kid and you're being taught, oh, this is the way of the world, blah blah blah. These other things are wrong. This is right, so on and so forth. being indoctrinated in some way or shape or form by the circumstances of what what you grew up in or what you're exposed to based on work or so forth. What do you think about that?
I don't know. I'm not certain what to really think about that. Other than the fact that I see us heading towards a civil war of sorts.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the problem, right? Is when aside from a lot of
Angry typing.
on the internet, when people don't agree with one another. What's that?
This is my world, my crown. I am authority. I decide what is right and wrong. Subjectivity is king. Fuck reality.
Yeah, that's another way of looking at it. But right, and that's the whole. Like I was saying, it's a very egocentric view of the world.
So, do you think we have an entire generation of people that are so egotistical to the point where they can't even imagine other people having ideas that are different from themselves?
Well, I
include different things than themselves.
What I noticed in the 90s was a change. Now, it possibly happened a little bit in the 80s, but I noticed it more in the 90s. Could be just because of my age. That a lot more of the advertising that was targeted for children was more, you're so great because you're a kid and you should have everything, right? And that's when you started to see like the Black Friday booms and people trampling over each other and everybody trying to get the hot new Christmas toy and this, that, and the other thing.
Did you hear about the person that died that one year trying to get an Xbox and a PlayStation 3 and all that?
Yeah, well, there's been many stories of people getting trampled and so forth.
It's funny, I don't remember people rioting over that.
Yeah, I know, right? But that's another external influence, right? Like this guy I once talked to when I was like 20, and he was like, "Oh, you got to give everything to your kid and so forth." And I'm like, "Your kid's got to grow up to be a fucking loser."
I'm sorry. When he says you got to give everything to your kid, is that how?
Yeah, I know, right? This whole idea, the baby boomer thing, right? What happened with the baby boomers when their parents didn't really have anything and they wanted to make sure their kids wanted for nothing, so they just tried to do all this stuff to give their kids the better than they had it when they were kids, without realizing that they were creating this environment for their children that focuses only on their child and elevating their child and what their child wants and thinks without saying,
So we're talking about they put the pussy on the pedestal.
Yeah, or in this case, the kid.
It's the pussy.
Yeah.
Give it everything it wants.
Yeah. Well. But that's an external factor, right? It's the hey, you are so important to me, right? Because you see a lot of parents doing this with their kids. You are the most important thing in my life. You're special. You're amazing. This, that, and the other thing. Well, what's the natural result going to be?
It's too much of myself.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, it's the end result of a benevolentism, right?
I think I was properly raised to believe that I am not as good as I think I am.
Yeah, I had a huge variety in my childhood because I had because my parents were divorced when I was a kid. So one family was not well off, the other one was middle class. I was picked on a lot in school, but in the church, I got a lot of that. Oh, you're gonna beat him off with a stick when you're older, kind of stuff. And I was just like, why would I want people to be around me just because they like the way I look,
I don't know. I was picked on a lot in school as well, but that I think stopped me from forming any sort of real friendships with individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I didn't give a shit about any of those people.
Yeah,
probably because of that. So there's a lot of plasticness in society that I don't like. Still is. It's just there's so much fake bullshit that exists in the average person that you talk to.
Mm-hmm.
It's disgusting. My mother told me years ago that I shouldn't lie. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I've since learned that everyone will lie when it is convenient to lie and claim they're not lying when it fits their own prerogative.
Greg, you're the greatest person I know, and I'm not lying.
Thank you. Thank you for lying about that. It makes me feel a little bit warm and fuzzy on the inside, the butterflies. But, to some degree, I think everyone is very, very selfish. Some more than others.
Yeah.
Like, solipsism probably results in...
well, it's the result of the ultimate selfishness.
Sure.
In some ways. But, so here's the other question. If you are in a solipsistic view of the world and you realize that you have a solipsistic view of the world, how do you get out of that?
Admitting that you're there is the first step.
I thought that was like step number 3 in the 12-step program.
No, it's a 100-step program, and the first step is admitting that it exists.
Oh.
The 100th step is offing yourself.
That's one way to get out of a solipsistic view.
You realize you're so unimportant, the world doesn't need you anymore.
Exactly, there you go. We've come full circle.
But I don't even know. I don't know how if someone is that deep into it,
mm-hmm.
I don't know if you could find some way of pulling them back. I find a lot of people are really deep into their own ideologies,
mm-hmm.
Whatever mini cult that they want to be part of
mm-hmm.
for the day or the month or the year or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You almost have to deprogram people to get them out of their crazy ways of thinking.
Well, yeah, because all of childhood really is programming, and regardless of what you turn out to be, it's all programming in some way.
You're basically teaching a child how to behave or at least you're supposed to be teaching a child how to behave and live in a real society.
Well, that's why I call
fully capable of making actual decisions.
Well, that's why I call the human mind, the psyche, the operating system of the biological machine. During every step, you're just modifying and growing subroutines and so forth. Now, here's one thing. I'll go back to talking about when I was dealing with the psychosis and hallucinations. For me, it was hard to get out of. I needed something that I could say, that I could, without a doubt in my mind, say this is not right. And for me, that was an instance when I tried to off myself. When things, according to my psychosis, it got to the point where everything was just too perfect, right? When everything goes the exact right way, that nothing can be wrong, so something is wrong. You know what I'm saying?
That's when I start to wonder, when is the shoe going to drop?
Right. So, and that's what it was for me. And then I went to the mental hospital afterwards and went there for a couple of weeks, and got a very interesting story told to me. Now a story is going to be great when it starts with there was my friend and I both doing lines of coke.
Was that really how the story started?
That's how the story started.
That's great. That's great. That's fantastic. It can only go up from here. Or rather, I should say, maybe it can only go down. Is it a downer or is it an upper?
Well, I'll tell you the story if you want.
Nah, we're already here today.
It involves
Save
a rabbit.
that for another day. The story night.
The story night. The coke-filled story. So yeah, but that was it for me, and that was a way for me to get out of, and it was a long, painful journey, and that's for all these people that are stuck in this groupthink and so forth, it is going to be this long, painful journey to get out of it for anybody that wants to basically deprogram themselves.
I feel really bad for the majority of the world who's really bought into this entire thing, because I consider myself to be a rational person, but caveat to that, I can't say that I'm a rational person.
Mm-hmm.
Only thing I can say is that when I talk to people like you or anybody else that I interact with who I consider to be very rational thinking people.
You consider me a rational person?
In some degree.
Okay, there we go.
Except when you're playing board games. You're not rational there. You're irrational to the point of insanity. Mm-hmm. It drives me insane. But that's your whole shtick.
That's my whole shtick.
You're trying
I play shitty AI.
Don't even no. No, you don't even play shitty AI. You just play shitty person.
He's not lying.
But when I talk to people who are, in my opinion, cognitive individuals who can make decisions and base it on the world around them, mm-hmm. and they have objectivity, people that are, in general, fully there.
Right.
Okay? When I bounce ideas off of them, and they give me a response, I know that even if they disagree with what I'm saying, mm-hmm. that I'm making good points. Okay? I'm thinking through my thoughts and ideas, mm-hmm. and when I talk to people who don't have what I would consider rational thought processing,
right?
When I use them as soundboards, I sound good. They sound crazy, mm-hmm. and I'm sure I sound crazy to them because they're already crazy.
Mm.
But I also imagine that's how anybody who has a completely conflicting or contradictory ideology to another person might sound is, wow, that guy's absolutely crazy.
Well, I mean, more than anything, I think the one way anybody can take the first step to exiting a solipsistic view of the world is to say two words. Well, technically a contraction and a word, and that is, I'm wrong.
Sure.
So if you can start and look for things, most people look for ways that they're right, the confirmation bias. But if you can spend the same amount of energy looking for ways that you're wrong, that could be a healthy starting point. As long as you're doing an even balance.
I try to find times that I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I've found many times when I am wrong. I've also found a lot of times where you just fall into the trap of finding bad articles that try to say that you're wrong, but they end up just not saying anything at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's true. I try to... Sometimes I'll purposely be wrong just to see where it goes.
Oh, I like doing that. I like defending a bad point just to defend a bad point to see if I can make a terrible argument that is believable.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll do it just because, like I say, the person who doesn't argue every side of an issue makes themselves a little more than a puppet.
Yes. You got to be able to argue other sides of your issue.
Yeah. So, that's the whole thing about debates and whatnot. So, all right, yeah, that's all the time we have for the topic. Let's get into some of Greg's art.
Art.
And here we go. Let's transition over there now that I'm working this right. All right, so what do we got here, Greg?
So this is a very old picture. Mm-hmm. This is when I first started putting more time and effort into my creativity. Mm-hmm. This is right after I got out of working at Bob's Discount Furniture, and I was looking to expand my creative talents further than they already were. At that time, I'd already been doing stuff in Minecraft, and that just wasn't a valid way of making money. So I was trying to figure out a way of... even though I'd made $1,000 or so playing Minecraft mm-hmm. from building stuff,
right?
I didn't want to put the time and energy into doing it. It just didn't seem like a
yeah, I can understand that. Like, I play games like Factorio and Satisfactory, and and I started over at the beginning, and I'm just like, oh, I really don't want to build this whole infrastructure all over again.
But I cannot say, though, it is not the best $26.95 that I've ever spent. Because I spent $26.95 plus tax to mm-hmm. buy the game, or something like that, back when Minecraft was that much.
Right.
And I did about $4,000 in business, building shit for teenagers and a few people in their 20s for their servers. But, so this is called The Little Viking. This is probably when I was deep into watching Game of Thrones and other assorted fantasy type stuff. And mm-hmm. The picture actually is, I wasn't intending to create this. This was all of my spontaneous training, just training myself to be more spontaneous in my drawing style, to not have any direction at all, but still come up with a picture that was interesting and I would say cool to look at or something like that, right? I didn't really have any direction in the picture. I just started with first couple lines. And the first two lines on this are the horn on the left side of the picture. I just did the line swooping down and the line swooping underneath the other line, and I connected it with a curvy line, and then I was like, we're going to turn this into a horn. And so I did a couple other swoopy lines, curved, I cropped it, so that way I got that nice little curvature to make it seem like it's sort of 3D.
It looks like a kind of like cute little chibi robot Viking.
That's what I went for. That as soon as I finished the helmet and the horn, I was like, I'm just going to make it a Cyclops. And then I decided, he's got to be a cybernetic Cyclops. So I started adding in the
robot teeth.
Yep, robot teeth, the little bolts on the helmet and everything.
Yeah, it took me a while to figure, because for a second there I thought this whole split was like, this was kind of a head here and this was all just shapes, but now I realize this is actually part of the body.
Yes. I think I could do a better job if I were to redo this picture again. The part I like the most about this is the helmet and the face, and the rest of it is sort of just there because, as I say, I was really just trying to practice my spontaneity at the time and come up with just...
I mean, I definitely like the contrast and patterns. It definitely brings the different things out.
That's why I put the line in the middle. I wanted to divide the space into two spaces. One where it was going to be heavy in pattern, so you would sort of ignore it.
Even like here and then like here. It's really...
He's being spied on by some nefarious evil demon in the background. That's why there's two eyes and eyebrows above it, above the helmet.
So yeah, I dig it. I dig it. I like your art, Greg.
Thank you.
So I guess it's about time where we should wrap up the show. What do you think? Oh, by the way, for those of you that are our listeners, next week we will be taking off. Hopefully I'll remember to mention that again on Thursday.
Caveat. Might be the week after that.
Might be the week after. Okay, so either next week or the week after we will be taking off because Greg's a giant bitch, you know.
I'm waiting on my boss to tell me when we're going down.
Going down on what? Are you going down on your boss?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. No.
But I think that's it for the show for this episode.
Once again, I am Greg.
And I am Charles.
Remember never to question.
Never ask for proof.
And always believe what you're told by the news and politicians.
No matter what. Now go back to sleep, fuckers. Good night, fellow human. You'll wake up tomorrow to cause more destruction and bring much more sorrow. You'll go out and smile and pretend you are good. But once you get crossed, you'll don a black hood. You'll maim and you'll rend, all while you pretend that you are some kind of hero. You can't face the truth, and you'll stay aloof to the fact that you're a zero. You'll sit and stay glued to a spoon-feeding tube so that you can believe you're the best. You'll obey and be bribed by a campaigner's lies. All throughout the COVID Murder Fest. I hate you all.